For most of her life she had learned the art of yielding long before anyone taught her the word itself. Yielding did not always look like surrender, it looked like patience, politeness, compliance, and the quiet acceptance of limits that were never written down but always enforced. She learned when to speak and when to remain silent, when to step forward and when to move aside. These lessons were not taught in classrooms, they were absorbed through observation, through correction, through consequence. She watched how the world responded differently to different people and she adjusted herself accordingly, believing that adaptation was survival. Yielding became routine, so familiar that it felt almost invisible. She yielded in conversations where her thoughts were softened to avoid discomfort. She yielded in spaces where her presence was tolerated but never fully welcomed. She yielded in moments where fairness could have existed but chose not to. Her days passed in cycles of responsibility and restraint, and she told herself this was maturity, this was strength, this was how one endured. Yet endurance without dignity slowly drains something essential. It leaves you functional but diminished, present but unseen. But life has a way of testing beliefs through repetition. The same moments kept returning, the same subtle dismissals, the same expectations to accommodate, the same unspoken demand to make herself smaller. Each instance alone seemed manageable. Together they formed a pattern that could no longer be ignored. She began to recognize that yielding had never been temporary. It was not a phase she would outgrow or a step toward future respect. It was a permanent position assigned to her without her consent. And the longer she occupied it, the more natural it appeared to everyone else. The day that would change everything did not arrive with warning, it came quietly, wrapped in ordinariness, just another moment that asked her to yield as she always had. The request was familiar, the tone unremarkable, the expectation clear. Nothing about it seemed extraordinary to those watching, but inside her something shifted, not suddenly, not explosively, but decisively. The weight she had carried for years pressed harder than before, demanding resolution. She realized that this moment was not isolated, it was connected to every time she had stepped aside, every time she had swallowed discomfort, every time she had been asked to accept less than she deserved. She stood at a crossroads that existed only within her. To yield again would maintain order, preserve familiarity, and protect her from immediate consequence. To refuse would invite uncertainty, scrutiny, and risk, but for the first time the greater risk felt like continuing. As she was yielding no longer felt safe, it felt erasing. She understood that if she yielded again she would be confirming a truth she could no longer live with, that her dignity was optional, that her presence was conditional, that her worth could be negotiated endlessly. The choice formed quietly, without drama. She did not rehearse it or announce it, she simply chose not to move, not out of defiance but out of clarity. She was tired of explaining herself to systems that had no intention of listening, tired of proving humanity that should have been assumed. In that stillness she felt fear, yes, but also something steadier, resolve, the kind that comes when a decision aligns with a truth long denied. Her refusal was calm, almost gentle, and that was what unsettled those around her. There was no anger to dismiss, no chaos to control, just a person remaining where she was, as if that had always been her right. The silence that followed carried weight because it exposed the fragility of the expectations built around her. Compliance people were forced to confront a possibility they had never considered, that she might not yield, that the rules they relied on were not as solid as they believed. In that moment she did not think of changing the world, she thought only of ending a lifetime of yielding, ending the habit of self-erasure, ending the agreement she had never consciously signed. The choice did not solve everything, it did not erase fear or guarantee fairness, but it changed her relationship with herself forever. She had crossed an internal boundary and there was no returning from it. The choice that ended a lifetime of yielding did not announce itself as heroic, it was quiet, restrained, and deeply human, but it marked the beginning of something irreversible, a shift not only in how she would be treated but in how she would live from that moment forward. Every interaction, every decision, every silence would carry the echo of that choice, and the world, whether ready or not, would have to respond.